Attention active members, in order to earn credit towards LMHF Wellness Program Part 2, you must watch the video in its entirety and email Mia Vicario at mia.vicario@lmhf.net to receive wellness credit. Hello everyone, this is Jared Beyer again, Health and Wellness Coach. We're going to be discussing ways to monitor your health using technology, fitness technology. There's a ton of it out there nowadays, and it's very valuable information, but the main thing is we have to determine which ways to take that information and use it to improve your lifestyle. So we'll get started here with monitoring your health. So number one, these devices are providing what's called biofeedback. It's monitoring different things in our body that we can then take and show changes over time. We can also look at what's causing this, is it good or bad, rating our health, and just setting different goals for us to attain. Now, these are used for a lot of different things, not just weight loss and things like that, but just overall, checking in to see how active you are, stimulating you to do more activities. I actually, when I first got into health and wellness and using devices, we used a lot of the old school technology because I've done this for a long time. We're using chest straps when people would exercise, but they'd only wear them when they exercise. So they only really gave us a picture of how the person was performing while they're exercising. When they first came out, there'd be a chest strap with a watch, and it basically just sent a signal to the watch just showing heart rate. And it would give you different alarms and things if you're outside your zone, up or down. But that technology has drastically changed. So it is amazing how things have advanced in the last several decades, especially in my career, in that how much is now app controlled, how much can be used using a Fitbit like this. So the one thing which I was always kind of hesitant about was that using a chest strap is pretty much 99.9% accurate. It's pretty much dead on. And when these new companies started coming out, like Fitbit, they're just using this little light. There's actually two lights on this one. On your wrist, number one, if you're taking your heart rate, you're either going to take it here with your fingers or on your wrist, on the underside of your arm, not on the top. So I was really skeptical. When they first came out, these were not very accurate at all. So they've actually advanced quite a bit in the last, especially year or two. So with this technology, there's so many things you can get with this. And again, I don't recommend any specific brand. Whatever brand you use an Apple Watch, Garmin, all different types. But the main thing is that these are all app controlled. So this is gathering the information and it's being synced with an app. Now that app is what's constantly being updated and changed. So this is really just your device that's actually picking up the biofeedback and sending it to the app. So in the app, there's so many different recommendations and things that you're not going to be able to see on a watch, graphing and things like that. So there's really powerful information, and really reading it and understanding what it's telling you and how to make changes is the important component I want to discuss. So these smart watches, which again are pretty interesting in that people got away from wearing watches when they started getting smartphones, and now there's a smart watch which goes to a smartphone, or you can use this as your phone if you want. There's a lot of different features, but primarily looking at like Fitbits. The company I'd used for years was called Polar. They're still around. They've kind of like fallen back in the pack, but they were the leader for years. But Fitbit has really pushed on. You can always use Garmin. Every company has a watch now, and there's all these small companies that have smart watches or activity monitors. So the main thing is it's picking up so much information. It's incredible what this single watch here does. You can see it kind of picking up the lights. Everything from GPS, if you go out for a walk, you set it up, okay, I'm going to be walking today. It'll GPS your entire walk or run or bike. It'll tell you how fast you went, average heart rate, max heart rate. Invaluable information. So the thing that's different with these versus like the old school chest straps like I discussed, those are still out there. Just people don't use them that much because of this technology. It's so much smaller and can do so much more, and you can wear it all the time. So the main thing with any type of device is you have to understand how to use that information, how to improve your numbers and what you're doing right and what you maybe need to improve on. So number one, let's talk about accountability. That's the main thing that these actually focus on, is keeping you accountable. In the beginning, a lot of people that were using these devices were already pretty active and just wanted to see how active they were. They wanted to measure things. They wanted to improve all the time, which is a great thing. But then if you have someone that's not really active, they can be quite intimidating if you see the numbers and, oh geez, I'm under this and I'm not getting to the levels that are recommended. So it can be kind of daunting in that end. But the main thing is trying to set goals is the best thing for these devices, and finding ways to make yourself more active or make better small choices over time make the biggest difference. So one of the things that these had an issue with was accuracy. So if you do like a steady state, let's say you're walking or running or doing something that's pretty consistent, these are pretty much right on. If you start doing interval-based training where it's high and low heart rate, these tend to drop off a bit. So their accuracy drops a bit if you're doing something that's a little bit different intensity levels. And that's where the old school chest straps, they even have armbands now you can use that will actually measure those more accurately. But the main thing is that even if it's inaccurate, if it's consistently inaccurate, you still have a gauge of where you're at. If it's totally inaccurate and if there's no rhyme or reason, then it's a bit more difficult. But that's the nice thing with these, is they've advanced so far that the technology with using these little lights and whatnot have come along so far, so quickly. So again, the app is really what's going to show you everything, and then you can upload all your information to it. Obviously, you're going to put in your weight, age, goals, all that stuff, and it's going to make recommendations based on that. So it's almost like having a coach with you all the time. So again, the accuracy is one thing to look at. If you're doing intervals, it can kind of drop off a bit, but pretty much most of the time it's going to be right and spot on. So it is monitoring you 24/7. So this watch is worn pretty much all the time. I really like the sleep functions, which we'll talk about, because it's really going to break down where you are sleep-wise, not just how long you slept, but it's incredible how this thing picks up wake, REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep, and it will break all that down and score your information. But again, it's going to track steps just like a normal pedometer. Like that was probably the first thing out with these little, pedometers that would click onto your waist. Those were, had a little device in it to measure your steps and whatnot. These obviously being on your hand, there's a lot more movement. So if you're Italian, you're probably going to get a lot more steps because you can't talk without your hands moving. But it's also going to measure when you're exercising. You're going to actually switch off, go to an exercise mode and select what type of exercise you've done. So that can either enable GPS if you're walking or running outside or biking. If you're actually working out, let's say in your house or a gym, you're not going to want the GPS feature, so you can select a certain type of workout you're doing. And really what that's doing is it's also recording what you did at that time. Not the exact exercise, but the type or mode of exercise you're doing. The sleep function we'll talk about more. Obviously the heart rate is very important. This will actually track your resting heart rate, track your exercise heart rate, average heart rate. There's a lot of different things it's going to do, and that's one thing that I've really picked up a lot on is showing where my heart rate is at what times of day and what I'm doing. So you can track all that throughout the day. It's amazing information. Metabolism, how many calories you're burning. That is a function that this watch has been awesome with. Again, all watches are different. I've just really been using this and experimenting with this Fitbit. So there's a lot of different things out there. One other thing I will mention is that a lot of people are selling these off very cheap Fitbits because they're getting like Apple watches and things like that, which do this stuff but also have more of the smartphone features on them. So a lot of people already have these, and now they're getting into smart watches. So these activity monitors are really pretty cheap. You can find them used really cheap, and there's not much that can go wrong with them. This has a case on it. Just make sure you clean them off. That's one thing, is if you're sweating and wearing them all the time, make sure to clean the back and let them dry off, because that can cause some irritation. You can also switch from one arm to the other if you get any irritation. But the other big thing is obviously you can record what foods you're eating, how much water you're taking in, obviously any type of weight loss. So all this stuff is put right into the app and tracked. It's really, really powerful information. Let's look at steps first. So typically these devices are going to recommend the whole 10,000 steps a day, and they're going to give you these rewards or goals. If you hit the 10,000 steps and above 10,000, there's more and more goals you can hit and badges you can get. It's just simple accomplishments, but it's pretty amazing to see how active you are. I mean, if you're really active, it's pretty amazing what you can score on these things. If you're not very active, it can be kind of daunting or unmotivating to see that. But the main thing is it's trying to improve where you're at. So you're really competing with yourself to improve your numbers throughout the day or week, month or year. So again, the whole 10,000 steps approach is a big part of this technology and trying to make sure you're hitting those levels. If you're inactive for a certain amount of time, it'll say, hey, get up and move around. It's time to get moving. So really cool when it comes to like micro breaks. So you can, if you realize you've been sitting for too long, it'll make you kind of take a little break and get up and move around to boost your steps. So the main thing with this technology and when it comes to steps is try not to, a lot of people when they exercise, let's say they would exercise in the morning and not do much all day. They're sitting at work or at a home office. So the important thing is to get up and move, and that's where that little function of noticing you're not moving much to make you take those micro breaks really helps out a lot. So you don't want to get all your activity at one point and then sit for 8 hours in the day, right? So you want to kind of break that up and make sure you're moving around as much as possible. So again, we've talked a lot about activity and exercise. So activity being, everything from walking around, moving, staying active, things that are not real strenuous, things you can do for an extended period of time. Like you could walk pretty much, unless it was a real rough terrain, pretty much indefinitely. But when it comes to exercise, you would actually go and switch over the device and select which activity or mode you're in. So again, it's going to record that and show your progress over time. It's going to show obviously a lot of your caloric burn, your average heart rate, max heart rate, how much time you're in the zone. It's going to break all that stuff down for you. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out of what we would have to do ourselves. So the activity and exercise function on these are excellent. The sleep is, like I said, kind of one of my things I've tried to research more and more about. I'm always trying to improve my sleep. Sometimes you just have off days, but it's really interesting when you kind of experiment to what works and what doesn't with your sleep. So I've been actively trying to focus on going to bed at a certain time or earlier with this, and then waking up at a specific time. And then every morning I try to track what levels I'm at, and it'll give you a score. So number one, it'll give you how much time you were asleep, the total hours, but also how much time you're awake. So if you're tossing and turning and waking up, little times here or there, opening your eyes, it's interesting how much it's actually going to pick up that stuff. In addition to that, it's going to show when you're a light sleeper, if you're moving around a bit. Deep sleep, you're pretty much at the lowest level, and then REM sleep is also recorded, and that's typically when your rapid eye movement, you're dreaming in that phase. Your body's actually pretty much paralyzed at that point because we don't want to act out our dreams. So for the most part, when you're in REM sleep, you're pretty much not moving, which is really interesting. Again, you can see these different levels, and that's a screenshot there of what the actual app would show for sleep. So it shows all these different levels and what times you're in each zone. Really, really cool stuff. Obviously with heart rate, like I said, this is using this little light behind here to pick up your heart rate through the top of your wrist. And again, we're going to look at, I had discussed before, a resting heart rate. So the more you can get your resting heart rate lower and lower, the better off you're going to be. And that's one thing that I've focused on since using this for the past 3 weeks, is basically trying to get my resting heart rate lower. My resting heart rate was a bit higher, I think just because I hadn't really focused on it, but this really kind of makes me more aware, more mindful of my breathing, which will help more with lowering my resting heart rate. Now your max heart rate is going to be pretty much set at 220 minus your age, unless you have some type of health issue, but pretty much making sure your resting heart rate, if you have a resting heart rate of over 100, pretty consistently, that's something that you should really talk with your doctor or cardiologist about. But making sure you're in a lower range and taking that stress off your heart is really important. So the heart rate function of these is phenomenal. It really has come a long way. Again, like I said, when these first came out, they were not very accurate, and they've really improved. The technology has really, really improved. So again, the main thing to look at when it comes to heart rate is it's going to track your heart rate throughout the day, and you can see, okay, I went for a walk, I did this, I got up, I was sitting for a while. You see all those levels, and you can kind of gauge your overall health or heart health, cardiovascular health, based on these numbers. So interpreting this information is very important. So for instance, if we're looking at resting heart rate, if you want to lower your resting heart rate, there's a bunch of steps you can take to lower your resting heart rate. And number one, I already discussed, which was focusing more on your breathing. If you're a shallow breather, your heart rate's going to naturally be higher because your body's trying to move that oxygen around your body. You have less oxygen available, so the heart's got to pump faster and get that out. If you focus more on your breathing, and again, I've talked about belly breathing and using your diaphragm, that will draw more air into your lungs and will provide more oxygen into your body because you have more surface area. The other things when it comes to interpreting the data would be obviously looking at how many calories you burn per day, right? So a lot of people think they have a slow metabolism, but these will really show, okay, you weren't as active as you needed to be, or this is how maybe you're overactive, you're not eating enough. So when it comes to the whole caloric burn versus what you're taking in, looking at that weight management ratio is really important. So interpreting that information is very important. The other thing is most of these devices, the batteries last, like I think this one lasts for 5 days. You can have it on, keep the clock face on if you want, and you can also turn it off. Another really cool feature is you can have it based on movement. So if you're moving around and it's not turned on, you flip your wrist like this, it'll turn on, the screen will activate, so you can actually see where you're at. So again, some really cool things they've come along with these devices over the years. But again, how you interpret this data as good or bad, or how you really can change these things and modify your inputs to change the outputs is the key. So it's not just like, yeah, I'm going to wear this around and not look at it. It's more about, I'm going to wear this and see how my day went and see areas I can improve on. And it's not just trying to do all the areas, it's kind of focusing one at a time. So again, as I discussed, my main one that I started off with was trying to lower my resting heart rate. In addition to that, I'm also looking at my sleep, because that's a key component to lowering your resting heart rate, is making sure you're sleeping properly. Your heart is getting some rest. There should be a time when you sleep where your heart rate kind of drops down. Okay, and that's also in relation to how much oxygen your body is getting, which this will also pick up as well. So there's a lot of really cool things to look at when it comes to trying to determine what factors you need to address for your overall wellness. Okay, so what action do you take? Once you have this data and information, what do you do with it? Okay, number one, if we're looking at steps, make sure you're hitting your goals and more. Build yourself up, increase, try and beat yourself. I mean, I know a lot of people, they do office challenge, they try to compete against a friend or someone else. Typically those are already active people. If you're not really that active, competing with someone else is probably not going to be the best thing for you. I always try to compete with myself. I want to outdo my numbers and improve over time. But the main thing is there's really no direct line. What will happen when you're improving your numbers and your overall health, you'll start moving in a direction and then you might backslide a little bit. You move in a direction, but as long as that overall direction is in a positive direction, that's what you have to do. There's no such thing as perfection. It's all about progress, not perfection. So I always tell people to focus on progress, not being perfect. And that's where you'll see these charts changing over time, especially when it comes to your weight. Your overall weight is never going to be a straight line. Like, okay, I'm 200 pounds and I went down to 198 and now I'm 197. It doesn't happen like that. It's going to be up and down. And there's many factors that affect, reading like your weight. How much food you ate, how hydrated you were, had you gone to the bathroom before. So the action that you take based on this information is really, really important. And with the apps, it's going to give you advice. It's going to tell you, most people do this, you're in this zone, that's average for your age, So you're doing good. So it's going to really grade you and score you, kind of like having your own health coach with you all the time, that is getting an inside look at your biometrics. Very important. You can also obviously show this stuff to your doctor. You can print the stuff out, bring it in, show them how you're improving, and that's a great thing. I mean, most doctors are always going to say, eat better and exercise. So this is proof of what you're doing. I'm saying, yeah, I'm exercising. Well, what exactly are you doing? And they can look at these biometrics and see those markers and say, okay, your resting heart rate's dropped down. That's excellent. Your steps are going up. There's so many different factors to look at. Obviously food and things like that, entries, that's all done through the app. You're not going to do that on the watch itself. Obviously you can do it on your phone on the app. But the main thing to do is make sure you're having that action. Action changes things, right? Nothing changes if nothing changes. So this is really kind of coaching you along and giving you that guidance. And there might be times where you backslide. To me, that honestly, that motivates me. If I notice I'm not keeping up with what I did, I'll get back on track. So it's not about being perfect. It's about focusing on moving in that positive direction. So the coaching end of it, again, is going to be through the app. There's going to be a lot of information. Again, I don't recommend any specific company. I'm just really using Fitbit as an example. They really have taken over the market quite a bit. But again, you're going to enter a lot of your basic information, and it's going to give you recommendations and coach you through that based on what it's getting back. So sometimes it's going to need a little bit more information before it can make a determination on your health. But in general, it's phenomenal because you can go back however far back you want and find where you started off at and really see that change over time. So I like to look at things in 30-day blocks. So if in 30 days you look back at your previous stats from 30 days ago, you're going to see gradual improvement over time. I don't like to see these people think they're going to drop 20 pounds in a month. That is really not a healthy way to do things. But a gradual change over time is really what you want to look at. So your lifestyle change trumps your genetics. So if you have a predisposition for some chronic illness that you can control, focus on controlling those aspects. Most of the time when people are looking at their anti-aging type stuff, this is key to that. So these small things slow aging. If you're doing the opposite, you can actually speed up aging. I know lots of people my age that don't look their age. They look way older because their lifestyle has really not been kind to them. So always look at this stuff when it comes to coaching and try to just better yourself. A small percentage, small increase every time. So you're always improving. Again, there can be little times where you didn't do this or that. No big deal. Just keep moving that direction. Now, when it comes to support, obviously you need to have people around you that are supportive. Obviously family, coworkers. If you're competing with someone else, I, again, like people to compete against themselves or former selves. But you need to have support. If other people are, not interested in their health, that's fine. That's their lot in life. But if you're looking to improve your health and do things that keep you young as long as possible, or even reverse aging a bit, this is stuff that really does a ton, and they're not expensive. You either pay for it now or you pay for it later. So either put the time and money into something now, or later on down the road you regret not doing that. So again, I'm a big fan of these things, and they really do wonders to really record what you're doing and give you tips on how to improve that stuff over time. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to message me, and have a great day. Thank you.